Welcome to the Scott Townsend Show, brought to you by Dietzo Man Productions.
Hey, this is Scott Townsend, and you're listening to the Scott Townsend Show. And today I have with me a great guest, a longtime friend, Drew McLellan. How's it going, Drew?
Hey, good. Thanks for having me.
Hey, you bet. So Drew's an agency owner. He's with the he started McLellan Marketing Group probably back in 95, was it?
Yep.
And
we're
then,
25 this year. Yep.
Yeah. Oh, wow. And then he's also the owner of the Agency Management Institute, and has been very active with that, and for the last how long now? So
a little over a decade now. Yeah.
10 years.
Yep.
And he's written several books, 99.1 Marketing Tips, I think it was. What was that?
99.3 marketing. Yeah, right.
Nothing like getting your name of the book wrong there.
That's, if they Google 99 point anything, they'll get there.
Yeah. And then you did this Age of Conversation crowdsourcing book.
Yeah, we did 3 of them.
I got to be a part of
Yep.
on a couple of those, so that was great. But Drew's also, it's interesting, you're a big Dodgers fan, right?
I am a huge Dodgers fan, yes.
And you and your daughter you collected continents.
Yeah, we set a goal about 5 or 6 years ago. We would travel together every summer, and I think we were in Italy, and we were just sort of dreaming about where we wanted to go next. And I said, wouldn't it be cool if we could get to every continent by the time you graduated from nursing school? So she was still in her undergrad at that point. And so we set a goal and we sort of mapped it out. And then this last December, we spent a couple of weeks in Antarctica, which was our 7th continent. So, and she graduated in May, so we got it in just in the nick of time. So
Antarctica. So what was that like?
Really cold.
Really cold.
Yeah, it was spectacular. I mean, the icebergs. I mean, it was visually beautiful. It was exciting to like step out onto a glacier or an iceberg. That was really cool. But we had some rough weather. You can see why it's a treacherous place, and a lot of people don't go there. It also is a pretty physically demanding trip, just to battle the elements. And we had some very rough waters, and all of that was part of the adventure, but you
Right.
have to be ready for the adventure when you go.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Your favorite continent?
Africa, without a doubt. It was spectacular. Yeah.
Giraffes, elephants,
Hippos.
hippos.
Right? Lions. Yeah.
All
Yeah,
that
it's
cool
really
stuff.
interesting. If you would have said to me before we went to Africa, would you like to sit for an hour and watch a pride of lions eat something? I would have said, no, I do not want to see that. But actually, when you're there and you're sort of immersed in it, it just reminds us from a marketing perspective how important context is. That when you're there and you're immersed in it, it feels perfectly normal and natural, and all the things that you thought would be yucky about it really actually aren't. It was really, it came at a great time in my life too. It's Africa, at least going on a safari in Africa, a photo safari, not a shooting safari. Going on safari in Africa really takes you back to sort of the rawest of raw, right? And so you are very aware that you're not in charge out there, that you're following somebody else's rules, whether it's a lion or a leopard or an elephant or whatever could kill you at that moment.
Right.
They're defining the rules, right?
Right.
So it's a great way to sort of get a different perspective.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
All right. So Africa, that's cool. And so now let's turn it over to marketing just for a second.
Sure.
I heard you do a talk a while back now about your brand is not your logo.
Right.
And I experienced people thinking that their logo was their brand.
Yeah, the end all be all, right?
So I think this might help some of the owners out there, the resellers, or just anybody really, kind of get a fresh perspective on not even a fresh perspective, a new perspective on what's your brand, what's your logo, and how to differentiate between the two and not get confused.
Yeah, so I think of the way to think about brand is that brand is how you exist in someone else's head. So, for example, if everyone who introduces me says, "Oh, you need to meet Drew McLellan. He's a great dad," right? Then dad is my brand. And dad becomes in essence my logo. That word becomes the logo, the shorthand of who I am. So a brand for a company is how your customers or the world or your prospects, how they would define you. And a brand ideally, so here's the truth about brand. Every company has a brand, whether they've created one or not. So for example, there was a store for many years in the Midwest. It was a department store called Yonkers. And Yonkers brand, which they did not create, was if it's not on sale this week, it'll be on sale next week. Never pay full price for anything at Yonkers. And in fact, if you went into the store and something wasn't marked on sale, if you asked one of the salespeople, they would pull out the sales flyer from last week and the sales flyer for the coming week and try and find that it would be on sale for you. They also went out of business, by the way. But my point is in the absence of you defining your brand, how I experience you, the marketplace will define a brand for you. So it's critical for businesses to define what their brand is and how they want their prospects and customers to experience them. So typically a brand is much more about why we do something or how we do it differently. It's not what we do. It's not we're an oil and gas company, because there's a lot of them, right? But it's going to be something about why we do what we do or how we do it that is different for the consumer, that is going to differentiate us from our competitors. So when you think about Walmart versus Target versus, another department store, they all sell a lot of the same stuff. But how we think about them and how we experience them and how we decide which one we're going to go to, because a lot of people will drive past one to get to another, right? We've made a conscious choice as a consumer, and that's what brand does. Brand allows you to attract people who are going to love the way you do what you do and how and why you do it. And it's also going to repel people who find your value proposition not in alignment with what they care about. So a brand is much bigger. A logo is one of many ways you communicate your brand, but it actually isn't your brand at all.
Oh, Drew, now you're talking crazy. I mean,
I know.
I've spent so much time on my logo, I've got the colors just right. I've got the font perfect,
Yeah,
the placement perfect. Are you telling me that
all of that's important, but it is not the essence of your brand, right? It is one of the physical ways that you clue someone in. So ideally, you know what your brand is. Ideally, you know what you're trying to communicate, and your logo tries to capture some element of that. So for example, if you're a brand that is all about financial security and freedom, odds are your logo is not going to be red, right? So, but the red is not your brand. The red is you trying to interpret the brand or communicate the brand to your audience.
And hopefully they catch that.
Right. And if they don't, it's okay, right? Or, there's been a lot of times when somebody will go, "Oh, I've been doing business with you for 5 years, and it just occurred to me that the play on words in your tagline actually means this," right? So it doesn't have to be so blatant that they get it all right away, as long as you are clear with what you're communicating. And by the way, your brand is this promise that you make the world. This is who we are. And now the trick of marketing is to make sure that you keep that promise and prove that promise with every marketing asset you create, including a logo. The other really important place where your brand promise either shows up as a promise you're keeping or a lie that you're keeping is if your employees don't get your brand and they don't know how that translates to their job. So if I'm the call center, how do I bring the brand to life? If I am on the dock in a warehouse, how do I bring the brand to life? If I'm the CFO, how do I bring the brand to life? Everyone inside your company needs to understand that every day they either contribute to the brand or they contradict the brand. And they need to be taught, because they're not going to know this automatically. They need to be taught how to contribute to the brand and the brand's value.
Can you name a company that does this really well?
Sure, Disney, right? And it's easy to go, oh, well, of course, Disney, they're a big company, blah, blah, blah. It's harder. It's much easier to keep a brand promise when you're 5 people than when you're 500,000 people. But Disney is so clear about their brand. They are so clear that they are all about creating these magical moments for their guests, and that everything they do is in service of creating those magical moments. And every employee, from a housekeeper to the person who lets you on Pirates of the Caribbean, to somebody in their marketing department, to the reservation person on their 800 number, all of those people understand that their number one goal is to create a magical moment, however that gets translated through their job lens. So every company can have that. So a lot of people hear that story and they go, well, yeah, but that's Disney World. We are an oil and gas company, or we are whatever we are. Your company can have exactly that, where your employees take such incredible pride in delivering your brand experience every single day, and that you have done a great job of coaching and teaching it, of building it into all of your systems and processes so that everyone understands it and they realize their role in keeping or breaking the brand promise. That's where a lot of companies, well, first of all, a lot of companies do what you say, which is they think their logo is their brand. But a lot, even if they get what brand really is, they sit in a room with a consultant or an agency like mine, and they define what their brand experience is going to be like. And then they go tell the world. They change their tagline, they change their logo, but they don't invest the time and energy to talk to their own employees about what this means. And so, like in my agency, when we do a lot of brand building for clients, in my agency, we will not agree to a brand project if the client doesn't agree to a year-long program that we've called Seeding the Brand. And what that means is that we're going to be inside that organization, seeding the elements of the brand with every employee they have so that they understand how they contribute to it. Because otherwise, honestly, it doesn't work. It's a marketing ploy, but people don't experience it. So now basically the company's out promising this brand, but when they interact with your frontline employees, they don't experience that brand. So like if you had let that tram go and you'd said, there'll be another one, bye-bye, and that kid had to stand there, and those parents had to stand there, or whatever it is, or somebody hadn't let them on an attraction, or whatever it is, the employees actually are the ones that keep the brand promise. So if they don't know what it is, and they don't know how their job actually aligns with the brand promise, then the odds of them just guessing and getting it right aren't so awesome.
And you just spend a lot of money for nothing if you're not going to share it with the people who are going to hope. Well, and so you still don't own your brand, but you hope that you create the environment where the audience, the customer, gets it.
Right, because here's the deal: the customer gets to decide if you're actually blowing smoke up their skirt or you actually mean it, right? So if and by the way, you can have a great brand and you can deliver the brand 9 times out of 10, 9 employees out of 10 can deliver it rock solid on point. And you can have 1 employee that drops the ball and that breaks the brand, right? Trust is a hard thing to earn and it's an easy thing to lose. And that's what brand is all about. Brand is about me saying something and then proving to you through my actions, through my policies, through our return policy, through how we answer emails, whatever it may be. I prove to you every day that that promise is legit, or, you know, I'm full of it. That's it.
I remember that Enterprise Rent-A-Car a long time ago. We always prided ourselves on not answering on the first ring, but at least by the 3rd ring.
Yep.
And that still is with me today. I mean, if I can't get to the phone by the 3rd ring, there's a problem, you know?
Right. But that's taking the brand and drilling it down to an actionable item that everyone can understand, can remember, can deliver against. And when an entire company is in that kind of alignment, think of a marching band. When everybody in the marching band understands exactly what they're supposed to do and they're all in step, it's art. It's beautiful. And a brand can be that. There's a great scene in a movie, and I'm trying to remember what the movie is now, where the band leader is saying to the team, look, if one of us is off step, then we all look like we don't know what we're doing. And that's what happens with brand. If one of us is off step. So one of the places where companies make a mistake with brand is A, they don't have a clear brand. B, they don't communicate it clearly. But C, they tell their employees once, if they tell them at all, what the brand is and what it means. And then they don't keep talking about it. If you're actually going to honor a brand, you have to keep talking about it. Disney cast members are constantly being brought into training, are constantly earning or not earning awards, are constantly being held up as examples or not of people who make magical moments for guests.
That's the truth. I mean, they constantly talk about that. I'm living proof. I mean, having worked there, I know it. They're constantly not beating it over your head, but they're reminding you of where the company came from, the Walt Disney story, all that stuff.
So, and if they can get it at the size that they are, and they can coordinate a marching band of 500,000 people, or how many of our employees they have, we can do it with our company of 5 people or 50 people or 500 people. There's no reason why we can't. The difference is they make it a priority and most businesses don't.
So you really don't own your brand. The person, your customer's perception defines the brand. So if your plumber shows up in a wife beater t-shirt and muddy shoes and walks into your house, that's your brand.
Right. It is, your brand is how your consumer experiences you. And honestly, your brand is equally how your employees experience you. So you can't be one thing to the outside world. So let's say your brand is, something about how much you care about your customers. And then you're a really lousy employer and you don't care about your employees, right? That doesn't work. It's like, if I'm an honest person, I can't be honest with you and be dishonest with my other friend. If I'm truly an honest person, then I'm honest, right? In all settings. So if I'm a brand that is a certain thing, so Disney's a great example. If you're going to make magical moments for the guest, you also have to make magical moments for the cast members, right? You have to treat them the same way you want to treat your customers. So yeah, a brand has to be sort of 360 holistic, but ultimately the one who decides if your brand is genuine or not is the consumer. So you get to define it. You get to decide why you're different, how you're different, how you want to differentiate yourself in the marketplace. But ultimately, I, as the consumer, get to decide if that is actually truth.
Bruce Campbell, Mark Benioff, Salesforce CEO, hired Bruce Campbell to do a logo, a rebranding for them. And Bruce, he said, a logo is simply a graphic representation of a company. A brand is more. It is a collective set of memories.
Right.
And I thought that was really great. This is basically what you just said.
So if I've never done business with you before, a brand is not a collective set of memories because I don't have any memories with you. So it's a promise of memories to come, right? And then after I'm your customer, then every time you reinforce the brand, now I remember that I had that experience over and over and over again, which reinforces that you actually are who and what you say you are.
Which is probably really frustrating for a lot of businesses when you start talking like this, is because you can control the logo, you can control the Pantone colors, you can control all of that, but you can't control a person's perception of your business. And you try, or maybe you don't try, and because it seems too ethereal, or it's too touchy feely.
I think you can control it. And I think you control it by making sure that your brand is genuine to your company. And that's where having somebody come in and help you sort of craft a brand. Kind of when we do a brand, we sort of think of it as peeling back the onion, right? So we're not making up a brand for a company. The brand already exists. We just have to find it and then sort of flesh it out and make it more relevant to the consumer. But it has to already be kind of a core value, tenet, belief, motivation inside the company to begin with. Otherwise, you're right, you can't sustain it. So the trick is to uncover what it is about how or why you do something that differentiates you in the marketplace. And then being willing to invest time and money to keep telling that story over and over, internally and externally. So you absolutely can control how people experience you. Now, can you control 100% of the people 100% of the time? No, because somebody may walk into your, for example, retail establishment. They may have already had the worst day of their life. They may already have had no sleep because the baby kept them up all night. And there's nothing you can do that's going to give them a good experience because they came in looking for a fight. But 99 times out of 100, you can control and create the brand experience, and how you respond to that person, the one whose baby kept them up all night, and how you respond to their belligerence or shouting or however they show up absolutely is the brand. And so we can control it. It just requires a plan. It requires an understanding of the brand, a plan for infusing it into your culture and your organization, and making sure that your policies, your procedures, everything about your business is in alignment. So a great brand becomes a litmus test that before you decide you're going to do something. So let's say a bank decided their brand was, we were going to be the easiest bank to work with. We know how crazy your life is. We're going to be the easiest bank on the planet to work with.
Right.
Them honoring bankers' hours and being closed on every holiday from Groundhog Day on, it is not convenient for me. So if they're saying, you know what, we need to think about our hours. If we're really going to be this convenient, easiest to work with brand, then maybe we need to actually be open 2 nights a week till 8 o'clock because everybody can't get to the bank by 5 o'clock. Or maybe we actually need to be open on Saturdays until 2 so that people don't have to get up at the crack of dawn to try and sneak in on a Saturday. So a great brand becomes a business litmus test that allows you to make business decisions that are in alignment with keeping the brand promise. And if you're making a bunch of business promises or business decisions that aren't in alignment with your brand, then you know either your brand is superficial and you don't actually mean it, or you know that you picked the wrong brand because you can't even honor the promise.
It sounds like the brand is like a personality. And I think of the soup Nazi on Seinfeld. I mean, getting your soup thrown at you, that's your brand, and if you plan, you can actually plan that. You're right. So you can actually plan that, and you can be known as the rudest delicatessen if that's what you want. That's your personality.
Absolutely.
And so everything adds up to that.
So, for example, if you dig behind that, then, that brand is really about people come to us for a meal and a show. So we're going to give them the show. And our show is we're a crotchety soup salesman, right? So there's something behind it. Like there's some insight into the customer, even behind a brand like that. So it's not about sort of putting on a personality, but it is about understanding how your company intersects with your customers and your prospects' life and what you bring of unique value to them. So in his case, he brings this crazy experience that people are going to talk about long after they've eaten their soup. Right. They're not really going there to buy their soup, right? They're going there for the show. Mm-hmm. And that's his brand.
And so as niche, I like what you said earlier, there's riches in the niches.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're, if you have if you define your personality really well, your company's personality, then you can just really riff on that across how you answer the phone, your emails, your customer
Everything.
interactions.
Everything should go through the brand filter, right? So let's say your brand is that you are more, your differentiator is that you are more knowledgeable in your area, your field of whatever it is you do. And your knowledge allows your customers to get a better product at a better price. But the promise is, because we are smarter about this than everybody else, we can actually get you a better product for a better price. Then every email you send should be sort of intellectually interesting, right? It should be you sharing your knowledge. If your brand is really around that you swaddle your customers in love and care and comfort, then every email or when somebody picks up the phone, that sense of compassion and empathy has to ooze through those interactions.
Even down to the furniture in your lobby.
Absolutely, right. Brand is a litmus test for every business decision, right? It's either on brand or it's off brand. There's no in the middle, right? And so when something doesn't feel quite right, then you go, okay, well, that's off brand. That's not who we're telling the world we are. So we can't say it. Like, let's say we're going to change our finance policy, and now we're going to make them pay twice as fast as we used to make them pay. You have to figure, if that's what you need to do as a business decision, then you need to say, okay, how does that align with the brand? And if it doesn't, then you need to think about, is that really a business decision that we should make? Right?
Mm-hmm. So many things to think about. Why do you think people get this mixed up? Why do you think businesses get this wrong?
Because it's hard, right? It's super easy to pick a Pantone color and a shape and a font, and all of a sudden you have a logo and you can go, oh, we're done with branding, check. It's easy to do that. It's really hard. I mean, which is why, by the way, so many companies look just like each other and sound just like each other. Most companies don't do this well because it's a time commitment, it's a dollar commitment, it's a resource commitment, and it's hard to honor a brand promise all the time. So when we're working with a brand, one of the things we say is it's super easy in this conference room to decide this, but where the rubber meets the road is, let's say your brand is all about you being super compassionate, and you'll do anything for a customer. You'll run the product to their house. You'll get on a plane and fly it to them, whatever it is. And you have an employee who's been with you for 20 years, who's a crotchety old woman who wouldn't get in her car and drive anything to her own grandkid. Now the rubber meets the road, because guess what? She can't keep working for you. Either the brand is a lie or she has to go. And so there's all kinds of business decisions that come with really being brand centric that are hard. And so the reason why we get this wrong is because we don't want to do the hard stuff.
That's really good. Well, Drew, I really appreciate the time that you've spent with us here today talking about your brand is not your logo. We could go on for another hour or two about this subject. If anybody wants more information, wants to get in contact with Drew, I'll put his contact information at the end of the video and on the show notes for our podcast. Any last words?
Yeah, I think you have two choices in business. You can be a commodity, and then the only thing you can compete on is price. Or you can develop and emphasize a brand differential, which will allow you to be potentially one of the most expensive in your market or the most sought after. You know, Harley Davidson's another great example of a brand. Their motorcycles are more expensive than anybody else's motorcycles. People will wait 2 or 3 years to get a new model of motorcycle, but they would rather not have a motorcycle at all if they can't have a Harley. You can be the Harley Davidson of your industry if you are willing to do the hard work of branding, or you can compete on price and have to keep capitulating on price. Those are the only two choices for businesses today.
Take your pick.
Yep.
All right, that's awesome. So thanks a lot, Drew. Thanks for spending your time with us. If you need more information about Drew, his contact information will be at the end. For Drew McLellan, this is Scott Townsend. Thank you for watching The Scott Townsend Show, and we'll talk to you later.
The Scott Townsend Show is a Deetso production. For more episodes, visit the Scott Townsend Show YouTube channel, listen on Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your favorite shows.
The Scott Townsend Show.